Gautam, if you can just, Gautam, if you can put his flyer on the screen. I'll start the introduction of the speaker of the day, Mr. Mallikarjun. He is a member of the ISHRAE Chandigarh chapter, and he's the co-chair of CTTC in that chapter. He's also an ISHRAE member. He's a member of the technical group TG-D102, which focuses on water treatment in ISHRAE. Now, Mr. Mallikarjun is a graduate engineer in electronics and communication from Karnataka, and he's working as a CEO of Messrs. Sanshubh Technovations Private Limited. He is also a certified BEE energy auditor, approved and listed energy consultant at BAFA Germany, energy manager by TUV Academic, and a lead auditor for ISO 50001 2011 and ISO 14001 2015. He has rich experience in the field of energy and water management and has worked in different domains of industry like energy conservation, energy efficiency for industries, residential, commercial establishments, industrial wastewater and power plants, quality assurance, quality control, construction management, etc. So with these few words, I will now hand over to the speaker of the evening, Mr. Mallikarjun, to make his presentation. Sir, please take over. Mr. Mallikarjun.
Thank you, Mr. Mahesh. Thank you, Gautam ji.
Pleasure.
Yeah, I think I'll start off with a screen presentation of mine. I see a good number of people joining in and still to join. I was told nearly around 85 people have registered for the webinar. It's good. Actually, today we are discussing about World Water Day. When Mr. Mahesh asked if I could do some justice to this particular thought, I said maybe I can. And I just, whatever presentations I had with me, I shared it with him and we had a discussion, and then finally, in principle, it was almost accepted. But later on, I realized if I had to talk on this particular specific day, then it is not about water conservation. It is not about rainwater management. It is basically everybody's responsibility and how each one of us can probably contribute to see that we address the core issue. So basically, today's presentation from my side would be basically 1 minute. Mahesh, can you see my video, myself?
No, sir, you are not visible. But
You are not visible,
it is
sir.
visible.
Okay, let me close all the control. Oh,
Your video is off, sir.
yeah, that's it. Why am I not visible?
Sir, can you just open your Zoom
Yeah,
window?
that's what I'm opening. In fact, it was here. All of a sudden, it went off.
Okay.
Can you take the screen on? No, that is okay.
Pardon?
Now, my video. Oh, start my video. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Now it
fine.
is visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm now visible, I believe.
Yeah, you are visible.
Yes, yes. Please proceed, sir.
Now, going ahead, basically, I thought of focusing on understanding or discussing as to how each one of us can execute our obligations and requirements to leave behind a safe and healthy place for all our generations to come. When I say healthy place, usually people believe that it is going to be about clean air, green environment, good infrastructure. What I basically meant here is about quality of water. Now, before we just get into the technical aspects, I think I'll just play two videos from my side, which are basically from UN itself. And the first video is of 2021. You can probably
L'eau, pour moi,
我是马颖，来自中国。
المياه بالنسبة لي
El agua para mí,
Вода для меня это
Water to me is life.
Humans, animals, plants all depend on water.
Water to me, well, it's everything.
It's our food, our energy, and even the clothes that we wear.
Water to me is a scarce resource. We need to use new technologies for rational use and water conservation.
We need to recycle used water to reduce water scarcity.
Water is fundamental to grow and produce our food.
we need to produce more with less water.
Water to me is fun. I like to play and swim in the water.
Water to me means sustainability. It keeps life on our planet in balance.
We need to keep the water clean to have a healthy life.
Water to me is a human right.
In my region, people struggle to get water.
We need to distribute water evenly and make it accessible to everyone.
We need to preserve water for the life of our planet. We have to start now.
We will always need water.
Okay, this is what was displayed, was basically circulated by UN in 2021. It was basically talking about the role of water that is being played, that has been played for decades that have gone by and the decades that would be coming ahead. The next one talks about the current year, that's the 2022. Okay. The theme is making groundwater, making the invisible visible. It in fact goes very well, because once the water is visible, probably most of the problems that each one of us have been facing would be addressed. Now let's see how things would change. Basically, this is what was said by Mr. Thomas Fuller. We never know the worth of water till the well is dry. In the past years, we have seen severe droughts. We have seen flooding. We also seen some good years where it was quite appropriate, neither less nor more. So when we have all seen this, then probably it is right time for us to keep our work culture in such a way that we try to replicate those good days rather than face drought or flood-like situations. There are times when people say, we don't have any rains, what do we do with the rainwater management? There are times when we have flooding and people have been saying, there's so much of water and what is that we need to do, why we need to do rainwater management? If you just go down, you will see that thousands have lived without love, but none without water. This is what was expressed by Mr. Auden. All these expressions have come by the heartfelt feelings. To give some insight into all these views of our great grandfathers, I basically started working on water management maybe in around 2000 or so. Having seen severe drought-like situations, being son of a farmer coming from a rural environment, it was always pinching us as to why we should all face such type of situations. And having done engineering, I thought I should also focus on the way how our rural environment could change. And over a period of time, although being an electronic graduate, electronics never pulled me into it. I had a lot of attraction towards the rural way of life. So that is how my interest started out. I mean, basically my engineering knowledge started working towards the rural activities. And you know, today, purely working on rural activities doesn't suffice. So it is with that, I try to mix both engineering and the rural upliftment. And this is how my first article, Water Energy, Two Faces of a Coin, was penned. Fortunately, the first one which I circulated was published as a cover page article. I would not like to talk much about what the article talks about. It's quite evident that if there is water, you have energy. If there is energy, then you always have water. And this is more so felt by people who dwell in urban environment. There's one more which was penned down by me. What if all the urban development, all the water bodies in the urban areas are brought under water management? That is the rainwater harvesting. What could be its impact on the energy demand? This was way back again in 2007 and published by the same publishers. That's Bulletin on Energy Efficiency, published by IREDA, Windrock International, and USAID. Here we talk about how much of water we receive and how much of energy we spend and how much of water we let go during rainy days. So this is quite evident that if we look back, and our entire life began where the water was, be it in the olden days or even centuries ago or even thousands of years ago. It is always where the water is. So we always depended on water to establish ourselves. Later on came the energy demand, where most of our power generation stations were where the water was, be it thermal power station, be it atomic, be it hydel, or even the sugar industries, or even the latest one, basically the wind energy. It has a direct impact on the presence of water in the atmosphere. Now, it is also evident that if you have water and if you have energy, then you have a good economy to talk about. When you have good economy to talk about, you have a peace of mind because all your basic requirements are met. Now, when we have water, energy, good economy, and good healthy, good place to stay, our life thrives and prosperity is always seen. And this is a cycle. Very moment any one breaks out, then we have a lot of disturbance in the way how we live our life. And we have seen this many number of times. During drought, we find that economy goes down. During flooding days also, you find our economy being disturbed. And as a result, the peace and prosperity takes a suffering. Now, having seen the importance of water, let's see how much of it is available. I'm now getting into the technical aspects of today's presentation. We all know that it is just around 2.5% of water that is available to us as fresh water. And out of this 2.5%, 30.1% is available as groundwater, and 1.2% is available as fresh or surface water. Now, when I say surface water, it is basically through streams, lakes, rivers, and some of it in the form of permafrost or ground ice. So if you look at the way, it almost boils down to almost around 0.0147% of the fresh water that is available to us for day-to-day consumption. So if each one of us can understand this, even a 0.001% change will lead to a major impact. It can be positive or it can be negative. If it is 0.0013, then we have a serious issues to address. If it is 0.0015 or say 157, then we have another issue to address upon, because we see most of our areas getting almost flooded out. This is some sort of a recalculation when it is normal, and what if it happens? What happens if 0.1% of the groundwater is pushed over to the surface water, or glaciers are pushed to the surface water? Now, having seen the availability, of course, I'm not going to be getting too deep into the technical aspects. I'm just put it across so that we understand that importance of 0.001% has a major impact. Now, if you see the source of that fresh water that is available to us, even as on today, earlier days, we always used to go to stream, and we always had some sort of a kuma where we used to call that as varti. In my younger days, way back, say in around 1970s, we used to go there take a cup, fill our pot, and then walk back a couple of kilometers. And that one pot of water would make our entire day's drinking water. Of course, for our general activity requirements, we always used to draw water from our open well. In 1980s, we saw some open wells, and post 1980s, it was mostly the bore wells where we used to directly drink borewell water based on the hardness aspect. But we always believed that bore water was very pure for us to consume. But as the days went by, as and when we started drawing more and more water, adding to that, adding lots of chemical fertilizers, adding lots of pesticides to the crop, we found even this borewell water was unfit. And usually many people used to complain about bad health in the early monsoon days. That is mostly because all the chemical filth on the surface was carried away and was being used to recharge these borewells without any scientific approach. Now, since the borewells were found to be unfit for supplying water, people started looking out for dams. We had good number of dams where people started building up infrastructure. Huge pumps were placed. We pumped water from the reservoir to a water purification plant, that is basically a water treatment plant. And from there, the treated water was further pumped to our doorsteps. Now, things became so simple that people started forgetting the hardship of fetching quality water. And this is the time when we mostly lost respect for water. We started misusing this, and we have been continuing to misuse till date. Only people who stay in a very, very scarce area, like say people in Rajasthan, they understand the significance of this water. But people who, like us, who are staying in urban areas, we hardly pay any respect to this water. And this is the water that we always offer to our gods when time comes. Morning we need it. For puja we offer water. Even for a person who falls sick, we venture out to get quality water. There are many people who go to Himalayas to get Ganga Pani. So things have been changing. Now people have started realizing that yes, water is one commodity which needs to be addressed, and that is why we are now all talking about World Water Day. Now, having talked about the source, see, in the earlier days, the quality of water in stream was supposed to be very good. Later, it was tube well. Then it became unfit because of use of heavy chemicals and fertilizers, just as I said. And today, obviously, we all have to depend on treated water supplied by government. That is the utilities. Now, this is not sufficient because we have to understand that the utility cannot keep feeding us with quality water. It can only feed us with filtered water, not with quality water. So this is a time where people have started going in for RO water, bottled water, and so on. Now, apart from this, if you look at the energy demand, like I said, when we went to stream to fetch water from Varti, we always used to walk a couple of kilometers, get one pot of water each. So this was considered to be some sort of an exercise because we used to go early in the morning and then get water. Later on, it was open well where we used to draw water and this too was on manual basis. Then came the pumps, and then the borewell, where invariably people started going in for pumping from deep wells. Now, if you see, the demand for energy has been growing up as you move from stream to open well to deep well. There's a tube well, and from tube well to dam. Maybe each one of us don't spend much energy on the water that we get, but the utility spends a lot of energy in pumping water from the reservoir to the WTP, purifying it, and then repumping it to our doorsteps. And if we are lucky enough, it comes without pressure, I mean, without any additional boost up pressure. If you are in a high level area, then we all again have to pump using our own energy resources. So the need for energy has also been growing up. Now, as the energy demand also goes up, we start feeling scarcity of water. Because you all know, we all talk about global warming. We all talk about carbon footprint every now and then. Many industries are now talking about trying to go carbon neutral. Some have set a target of being negative. So all these are quite good enough. But if you look at it is possible only when you start looking at water balancing and energy balance. We have been discussing about, every one of us, we need to file our IT returns, income tax returns. And this is what we do judiciously. Maybe it is because it is compulsory on our part, or maybe because our future generations depend on our financial well-being. We look at our balance sheets, check what is in, what is out, what is in reserve, and how is that we can probably build up our reserves for the future generations or our post-retired life. But so far, no one has ever given a thought on water balance and energy balance. Industries are now talking about energy auditing. Industries are now talking about minimizing their energy consumption. And this is the time when we always talk about 14,001, 50,001 ISO standards. But unfortunately, people consider that these two standards are just decorative. But if you really look into the design aspects, 14,001 when extended to 14,064, that is a carbon footprint impact. 50,001 will always, both these standards will always lead to give us a better energy balance, the financial balance sheet. When we talk about these two, the energy balance through 14,064 and 50,001, knowingly or unknowingly, we always work on our water balance. Because if water is available, if we don't pollute the water, our energy balance is well taken care of. If we pollute the water, then obviously our energy balance takes a tilt, and so is our financial balance sheet. And this is very well appreciated by people who are really working on the industrial background. Because today, each one of us have got to comply to pollution norms. You can't let your water, industrial water specifically, to drain out. Domestic, of course, there is no check as of now. There is a check from closed gated community. For those who are not in a closed gated community, probably there is no check and we can't do anything much on that. But people have started realizing the significance of quality water. Once we do this, we have energy balance. Once water and energy balance is in place, each one of us will start seeing good balance sheets. Now, having discussed about this, it is important that we understand water balance or energy balance comes only by way of waste minimization. if we can understand or if we can list out our day-to-day activities and chalk out where is it that we are wasting our water resources. When I talk about resources, I don't basically mean the energy resources. I basically mean the water and the energy. How much of water is being used per head? See, in urban areas, we talk about 130 to 140 liters per head. In rural areas, people talk about 60 to 70 liters per head. Because very recently, when I was talking about rural water supply mechanism to few of the top managements, I said it is not just 60 to 70. We need to look for 150 to 170 liters in urban rural areas and around 125 liters or 120 liters in urban areas. The role has to reverse. Now, this is mainly because urban people have been surplus or we get easy water, whereas the rural, they don't get their water in time, and they also have a lot of issues with quality water and timely availability of water. So people fetch out to long distance to feed their cattle feed. Maybe a person can drop, maybe sufficient with 60 to 70 liters in rural areas, but he has to feed his cattle. So this is the area where we need to understand. And unless we people living in urban areas can contribute, nothing can change in the rural areas. If rural scenario changes, then obviously there is going to be a major change in the energy demand. And that's where we basically interlink with water and energy in one way. Not the only way, it's just one of the ways. So as the energy demand comes down, when you have your water balance, energy balance comes down. Once the energy demand comes down, then obviously the global warming potential is on check. If this is on check, then we have steady rainfall pattern where you and I need not have to be in drought situations or flooded areas. Now, this when I talked about waste minimization aspects, I also said how water and energy get interrelated. Now, this again is a complicated, it's not just that complicated, but we all know if there is water, there is energy. If there is energy, there is water. If there is no water, then we need to spend a lot of energy on fetching this water from far off distances. Some people have started doing even for hundreds of kilometers. We pump water. So basically, it is water energy nexus which plays a major role in our day-to-day requirements. Now, keeping this in mind, I would like to take you back to the theme of the year, groundwater making the invisible visible. Now, if we can all start working on water management, if we all can look for minimized use of water, if we all can conserve the rainwater that hits our surface, then probably we can all see all our lakes flooded again. Of course, the government is doing a lot from its side, but we need to look to see that we don't pollute this lake water by allowing the grey water to flood into these lakes, because that's again calling for energy demand. And of course, nature does play its balancing role, but then it is our responsibility to see that we do as much as possible. Now, having said about that, energy optimization comes in, because we have reached a stage where we can not completely write off use of energy, increase power demand, but we can always strike a balance where we minimize our energy requirement by going in for rainwater harvesting mechanisms, which are based on scientific approach. Very recently, in a drastic move, we saw people digging a pit around the borewell mouth and allowing all the surface water to gush into it. Now, this has caused a severe threat to quality of water, which has made all our lives miserable. Because today we don't consider the borewell water to be pure. It is not just the local water that has been affected. The aquifer which is feeding this particular source somewhere else is also affected. Hence, it is important that we look for quality rainwater management mechanisms and not just blindly follow what has been exhibited or what has been practiced by our recent technicians. And on the other side, we all have RO water which is being used. People have also started talking about adverse effects of using RO water. That's a reverse osmosis, because you lose out on most of the necessary ingredients which otherwise we used to consume. In order to reduce the TDS, we have also been eliminating the essential minerals which were available to us by way of natural source. Of course, people have now started talking about mineral water, alkaline water. If you look into all this, it is basically we are now going more and more energy intensive. And it has almost been on a never, some sort of a non-reversal status. The other example is surface water. Basically, I also mentioned about the pond and the lakes. We have all been occupying these lakes, and as a result, this rainwater is being flushed out into outskirts. Now, it is true, if it is going into rural areas, it's fine. But we are also to consider that the local lakes in urban areas, once they get eliminated, once they get occupied by our need for dwelling, we lose out on water percolation back to the subsoil. Now, it is this which actually destroys most of our vegetative growth. And this is another area where we have got to be working on. And this is another area where most of the groundwater has been going invisible to us in the present day situations. Now, to make things realize in those, taking us back to those 1960s or 70s, where people hardly used to use borewell or energy pump water, it is not going to be that easy. It is going to be a hard task for all of us. But then people have also started realizing the benefits. You see many people in Rajasthan staying a comfortable life, whereas people staying in eastern states, that is the Seven Sisters, facing severe problems with respect to quality drinking water. They receive quite a good amount of water, and for that matter, even people in Mumbai, you receive almost around 3,000 to 4,000 mm of water against 250 mm that people in Rajasthan receive. And you see the suffering. Of course, people in the eastern states may not be seeing that kind of suffering, just as the people in Mumbai are, but they do face severe shortage of water during non-rainy days. It's just because people have not bothered to allow the water to percolate because of mechanized cultivation all the water bodies have been more or less removed. Now, having talked about this part, I mean, on the domestic side and the consumption side, let's see how our industrial application has been disturbed. Those of us who have been visiting or who have had experience of working with pharmaceutical, fertilizers, chemicals, sugar, power generation, and even those who consume water as one of the storage commodity have seen that this kind of scales are very common. Now, these scales are very common because we try to generate steam out of water, which has been contaminated, which brings in a lot of hardness. Now, because of this lack of clean and soft water, the energy demand has been growing up. It has gone to such an extent that we all consider this to be a normal phenomena, and we keep going with the existing situation. Now, it is here that we need to start realizing that making quality water, making soft water available, making low TDS water available to our industrial process can have a major impact on the energy that each one of us consume. I basically mean the captive power consumption has to reduce by a great way. Now, this is quite essential and very important because it is at this point that we reduce our energy demand and make this energy available to people who are really in need of it. Now, if you just have a look, somewhere around rise of 2 ppm in calcium carbonate leads to a loss of around 8,000 per year. I'm talking about 2 ppm. Presently, the water TDS is somewhere in hundreds. It is not about single digit. It is in 3 digit and sometimes even in 4 digit. So you can probably justify or you can compute yourself as to what extent it is going to have on our financial balance sheets. Now, apart from the energy being consumed for meeting our industrial process requirements, we also need to understand that there have been a lot of breakdowns happening because of the water. You see many pipes rupturing out. Even for that matter, we find many people replacing the taps in our own house because they often get choked or they often start leaking because of the quality of the water. And some places we find a lot of fungus. Now, this is basically to be taken very serious. Of course, Mr. Mahesh has been working very seriously on this. ISHRAE has been, I think, working on addressing this key issue. And very recently, I was asked to see if we could do something. I did make some effort, but we need to really give a serious thought to this. Now, this is basically what I'm talking about, biological problems. Basically, microbial contamination, which I mean even the slimes, which has a serious impact on the cost of operation. Many people have been complaining about various illnesses. We go to doctors, we consume a lot of medicines, but very few of us suspect the water that we consume might be a cause of concern. It is really a serious thought. Maybe each one of you may not have felt the difference, but people who are staying in rural areas, they often find that their health gets disturbed during the early monsoons. Not because of any thing, it is only because most of the chemicals that are spread on the surface of the earth are carried over to our water reservoir. And it is we who consume that water reservoir and then finally find that we are being disturbed. Our health goes out of our track. We people staying in urban areas should give a serious look, serious thought as to how these particular biological problems have cropped up. There are also very serious concerns about microorganisms which enter our industrial process, which gives rise to a lot of fungal growth. Now, since this is going to be a very technical mode, it needs serious addressing. I would just like to say, yes, this is a cause of concern for all of us. Now, the latest issue which I just mentioned right now, where ISHRAE has been given a task, Legionella has been very widely discussed in the European market because of the lifestyle that they lead, because of the environmental conditions that these people stay in. Legionella has played a very significant role in disturbing their good health. But we cannot say no to it, although we in India are living in a quite different environmental conditions. But it is time that we look into this as a serious concern, because every bacteria thrives and multiplies exponentially when the temperature of the water is somewhere around 40 to 50 degrees centigrade. And this is what is mostly a cause of concern for us, because every bacteria needs to be killed by taking the water to a very, very low temperatures or to steaming hot, in which case both are energy intensive. The only way is to see that we try to avoid polluting water so that all these biological bacteria or the fungus or the Legionella that we are talking about, effect is minimized. I'm just skipping this part because it's mostly theoretical, but I'm leaving it here because those of you who would like to have access to this particular presentation could probably go back and then read in detail and Google through to understand the major impact of this. Now, having said about the energy optimization with respect to water applications, it is important that we also look as to how global warming can be checked when we address the water and energy issue. Like I said, if we can minimize our energy when water consumption, the need for energy comes down. If the need for energy comes down, the need for power demand comes down. If the need for power demand comes down, the need for using water to generate this kind of energy, that's a power, also comes down. Now, once this comes down, you know, it's some sort of a cycle that continues. And it is at this point of time that we have to consider minimizing our energy use. If we can be comfortable minimizing our energy consumption, we can directly or indirectly contribute to minimizing the water consumption as a whole. If we can reduce our water consumption, invariably, the water that we receive remains in the ground. The water that we receive is made available to the plantations that we all plant. And you can start seeing some sort of a good green surface near your residential areas. People don't have to water this during summer days. Now, once you get into this habit of energy minimization and minimized water consumption, you all know that our energy demand comes down. As a result, burning of fossil fuels to generate this kind of energy is also reduced. When I say this, that means CO2 emissions into the atmosphere is also on check. Now, the other aspect is when the greenery in and around your place of stay increases, when you find trees thriving with a lot of green carpet on our head, you find the temperature of the surface being reduced drastically. Even 1 degree reduction can bring some sort of a good soothing effect for you. So as a result, need for our air conditioners also comes down drastically. Although we have moved to a stage where we cannot, many of us say no to it. You cannot survive without AC, but there are people who are making good attempt to see that they can keep their ACs off by going in for all this sort of a natural dwelling mechanisms. And it is in this respect that we all have to look for in green building concepts. Of course, ECBC has been brought in here by Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and many of our IEMP members, that's Association of Energy Management Professionals, have also been trying to work on it. Of course, there have been a lot of debates, but yes, it is the role of every Indian, every citizen to see that we adopt as much as possible. And adding to this, our educational curriculum has also started looking for through NAC accreditation mechanism. Under NAC, I mean, basically we all know that many of the colleges are being given some sort of a grade. College grading has been carried out under NAC. A, B, A+, A++. There have been some sort of a scoring mechanism. Now here, there are certain various mechanisms where people talk about mandatory requirements. Under this, there is a mandatory requirement for energy audit. People have been considering energy audit as in a totally different perspective, making this quite impressive or quite realizing to the people who are supposed to be managing the show. The NAC body has classified this particular thing into energy audit, environment audit, and green audit. Now, if you look, give a open, I mean, the generic approach, everybody says energy audit is environment audit is green audit. There is nothing new, but the intricacies involved are addressing this particular core issue of water management, energy management, our work culture. Now, if you look at this, unless we change our work culture, water conservation and energy conservation cannot go together. So our work culture is also being addressed, and the next generations are being asked to follow, or the management, the education institutions have got to take care that the sense of responsibility is imbibed among our younger children. Having talked about global warming, water, energy nexus, it is important that we understand how we basically contribute. Now, all the work culture that we have been incorporating till date has been contributing to our carbon footprint, which basically means water footprint. Now, all the remedial measures, like say, we are discussing about water conservation, we are discussing about energy conservation, we are discussing about the nexus that lies between water and energy, and how is it that we can contribute to minimize the global warming potential. Now, all these discussions, when physically being practiced by each one of us, by you and me, will lead to what we call as carbon handprint, which basically means our water handprint. That means any conservative aspect is our handprint. Any expenses are basically is our footprint. So it is important that we all start talking about carbon handprint rather than carbon footprint. Earlier, we have been talking about carbon emissions, carbon points. It is important that we start talking about carbon handprint initiatives so that we talk more of positive efforts rather than the negative efforts. It is important that we talk about water handprint rather than talk about water footprint and say we are spending so much of water on this aspect, we are spending so much of water on initiative B, initiative C. Instead, if we start saying, okay, this water is being wasted here, let's see what is that we can talk about. What is it that we can see to see that this water wastage is minimized? Now, this is what we basically mean water handprint. We need to start talking about water handprint, and directly or indirectly, we all will be talking about carbon handprint. That means contributing to a great extent in minimizing our global warming potential. This is a realistic way of making things feasible. Now, once we start doing all this, probably you and me will start realizing the availability of water in a very, very shallow areas. That's where we see in open pond. That's where we see in open wells and perennial source of water that flows by in our streams. Now, this is all what I basically believe is what you and me have got to be doing. Now, having seen all this, having known the impact of water use and thereby the energy, it is now pertinent to start recycle every possible water that we use, follow eco-friendly mechanisms, avoid plastic bottles, stop possible wastage, basically minimize grey water generation, respect our resources. Let's not walk into an open pond just because the temperature of the water is very cool. Because usually, no, you don't find a pond, be it in Rajasthan, be it in Himachal Pradesh, or be it in Kashmir, or sorry, not Kashmir, be it in the eastern states or down south, where it doesn't freeze. The water temperature is almost around 25 degrees centigrade. So we always find the pleasure of walking into those lakes. Let's not do that. Let's advocate for green initiatives, manage the waste from your home. When I say manage the waste from our home, I basically mean vermicomposting all the vegetables, all the waste that we can decompose. Let's decompose let's segregate our waste, which could be decomposed and non-decomposable, like say plastic, metal components, which can be sent for recycling, so that the load on the utility is minimized. Let's grow more vegetables in-house. Wherever possible, if we can grow our own, like say kothimber or methi, or whatever the ones that are possible in just say a 2 or 3 inch soil layer, let's try to see that we grow these so that we get really good vegetables as and when we want it. Of course, it is not possible to meet our entire year's requirement, but even if you can taste the quality vegetable grown by yourself for 1 week, you will certainly start practicing this and try to grow more and more as the days go by. So let's make a simple beginning and see that we contribute to all possible ways and means so that we really mean what we need for our next generations. I think with this, probably I would be making my point very clear, making my points to end, so that I believe I have just touched upon a few of the key issues. It cannot be very possible. I mean, it's not possible for each one of us to discuss at length. But then I think, yes, we have made a beginning. Let's not close this issue by discussing or listening to what it is only on 22nd of March and celebrating World Water Day, because every day is our water day. If there is one day where you don't get water, you know the miserable life that you and me lead into. So it is not just one day, it is one day where we talk about and collect opinions from various people and see where all we can probably contribute. And as basically, I think there has been a call where people, I mean, the UN has asked each one to send their articles, send their video presentations in exhibiting what mechanisms have been incorporated to see that we contribute for a good and clean water, thereby energy. So it is a day-to-day requirement, and I believe every one of us will be starting to look for water with respect and worship with this with all due respect to the next generations that we all strive upon. And if there are any questions now, I think I'm open for taking them. In case you have any requirements, you can always write to me. I'm available.
Anyone having any questions can type it out in the chat box. They'll be taken up with the speaker. Or probably you can, there's a question from Mr. Arun Kumar.
Yeah.
How much the microbial growth affect energy in percentage?
So this is technical in nature, but see, we cannot quantify this because the source of the water will decide the energy demand. From where do you draw the water is more important. And to what extent the pollutants have been added. So it's not that very simple for me to answer, but the impact is going to be very, very major one. And only because every industry, every one who consumes this water has got his own, what you call, opinion. See, if you look at sugar industries, most of the water is from the rivers. So they find it quite reasonable because that is the only source that is available to them. And most of the pesticides are the ones which they need to address upon. But if you're talking about thermal power station, invariably it is something different. If you're talking about hydel power, it is totally different. You might probably say how hydel power has got, what impact it has on the microbial listing, because all these microorganisms have a direct impact on the metal wear and tear. The metal, very moment when you say metal wear and tear, there is bound to be some life minimization aspect as well. Is that okay, sir? Or anything?
If I could make a quick comment, Mr. Mallikarjun.
Yeah.
What happens is if you look at HVAC systems, water-cooled chillers, just a case in point, microbial contamination invariably causes a layer of slime to be embedded on the tubes. And this compromises the heat transfer. Also, slime layers on the pipeline automatically causes more pressure and more pumping load So that affects energy. And moreover, microbial contamination in the water causes something called microbial induced corrosion, which not only damages the equipment, but corrosion products deposit and they again cause energy loss apart from equipment and capital loss. So I just wanted to comment on the HVAC part of it. Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Shamsher Ali, I think he had a point to. Are you there?
Dr. Shamsher Ali.
Yes, I'm there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When you talk about water conservation and water management, there are many aspects of it, and I think Ms. Mallikarjun has covered adequately one aspect of it. Thank you for that. I come from defense background, and my take on water conservation comes from my personal experience in defense background. If we take a look at the soldiers living at mountain peaks or Rajasthan deserts or in submarine, only the person who has gone through that life will understand the value and importance of water in our lives. And that boils down to only one point. It is self-discipline, as Mr. Mallikarjun says, respect and treat water as worshipping. It is required. Now, when we talk about self-discipline, somewhere it has to start, and I believe the start has happened in 2019, but unfortunately nothing has happened. I'm sure you will agree with me. 2019, when NGT passed the order for every district in India to come out with district environmental plan, and in that plan they are covering every aspects of management, the energy resources at the grassroots level, at the consumption point. They cover about 16, 17 aspects of it, and water and the solid waste management are part of it. Groundwater is part of it. And the solid waste management 2016 order is in line with this 2019 order. But the unfortunate part is, till date, it is more than 2 years past. Not all the district collectors have come up with their respective plans. That is where I think the governments, central government and state government, has to put their foot down and say, boss, you cannot drag your feet. If you take more than 2 years to come out with the plan that you do this, you do that, as simple as that, then you will take ages to implement that. Once you implement that plan, then it is a cakewalk. It will become our lifestyle. It will become our way of living. It will become our habit. I think that is where the authorities, clothed with responsibilities and power, they should come out more forcefully to make the even playing field for everybody to do their bit. Otherwise, we'll be only talking. Thank you.
Yeah, you rightly said this. In fact, just to highlight, see, Germany has made zero discharge mandatory. No one can let the water drain out into the drains. It is mandatory that every commercial establishment has to compulsorily look for zero discharge. Apart from that, another significant observations which I also know, or which I realize, is everyone cannot wash their vehicles on the road. It has to compulsorily go to a washing center, where the washing center has established a zero discharge mechanism, zero discharge system, so that no water is let out without purifying it, without treating the pollutants. Now, this sort of a mechanism, like you said, has to be regulated, has to be mandated by our regulatory authorities. But in India, with the kind of population that we are into, with the kind of literacy that we are into, with the kind of responsibility that each one of us have, it's going to be taking lots and lots of time, maybe decades, not one decade, maybe a couple of decades, before we start realizing that. And that's why I said, when it is not available at our doorstep, we start realizing the importance. And that is one lesson which we all need to learn from people living in Rajasthan. They know the significance, they know the impact of water, they know the importance of water, whereas we keep getting free water as and when required without any major hardships. And that is the reason why we basically don't respect the kind resources that we need to be respecting it with. So yes, there needs to be some sort of a regulatory mechanism in place, but after all, we are Indians. We are going to be taking all things very, very liberally. What we talk is what we basically don't mean. What we mean is what we don't talk. Am I right, Mr. Dr. Ali?
Yes, you are right. You are right. I'm not. I'm in agreement with you.
Yeah.
But the unfortunate part is, there are a lot things to be done to change the people's mindset. I'm sure you will agree with me. You also come across this kind of statement. I have come across many times. Many of my friends, they say, there are people who say, I have money, I can afford, so why should I restrict myself? This is a dangerous thing. And we can overcome only when we change our attitude. We are the same people. When we are in India, we are into don't care mode. The moment we land in foreign shore, we are into care mode. It is all in our head, in our attitude. We need to pull our socks. That is what is required. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good.
I hope there are no further questions. Are there any further questions? Maheji, would you like to, do you have any queries or something, or we can wrap the...
No, I think Mr. Mallikarjun has presented excellently. And thank you so much, sir. And I personally don't have any other questions.